All right, so today we're diving into a really fascinating paper that tries to do something pretty ambitious. It basically smashes together two worlds that, usually don't even talk to each other: deep esoteric philosophy and cutting edge biophysics. And it's all in service of answering this huge, fundamental question: how does pure, intangible information become life itself? I mean, really think about that for a second. This is the core puzzle, right? How does a thought, a feeling, a signal from the sun, or even some grand idea from a higher consciousness, how does that stuff actually get translated into the physical cells, the tissues, the DNA that makes you, well, you? It's a question that's been on people's minds for literally thousands of years. So the paper we're digging into today puts a pretty bold answer on the table. It says it's not a simple one-way street, from mind down to matter. Nope, it's a dynamic, constant conversation. It's a feedback loop. Information is always flowing down into our biology, and at the same time, our biology is constantly sending information back up, changing the whole system. Okay, so let's tackle that first part of the journey, right? The journey down. How does this abstract, high-level information get stepped down, so to speak, and actually get written into our physical bodies? To explain this, the paper pulls together two super different models. First up, we've got a model from a pretty esoteric framework called Keylontic Science. In this view, everything, and I mean everything, starts from this single universal source consciousness. And this source projects itself down through these energetic blueprints or morphogenetic fields that act like a kind of cosmic scaffolding, which eventually crystallizes into our reality and even our DNA. It's your classic top-down story of creation. Now for the second model, we're going to flip the script completely and land right in modern biophysics, which the paper calls light biofield dynamics. So if the first model was top-down, this one is all about bottom-up. It suggests that information from our environment, and light is a huge one, gets absorbed by our bodies. It creates these signals that ripple through our cells and can literally change how our genes are expressed. So check this out. Here you have these two totally different ways of looking at the world, side by side. On one side, you've got this esoteric idea of information coming down through dimensions. On the other, you've got the scientific process of light entering our biofield. But here's the kicker, the paper's whole argument. What if they're both describing the exact same process, just using completely different languages? And what if both paths ultimately lead to the same destination, our DNA? To make this idea really click, the paper gives us this amazing analogy from the world of computers. It says to think of all that abstract information, whether it's from source or from sunlight, as high-level programming code. And our biology acts like a compiler, translating all that elegant, high-level code into the dense, physical machine language of our cells and DNA. And what's so wild is that in both of these worlds, DNA ends up being the star player, the ultimate hard drive for all this information. In Keylontic Science, the DNA we can see is just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's the densest part of a much bigger, multidimensional template. And in biophysics, our DNA and its epigenetic markers act like a living diary, keeping a perfect record of our body's entire history with its environment. Okay, but remember what we said. This isn't a one-way street. Information has to travel back up. So how does our physical body talk back? How does it send information from our cells back into the wider system to influence our own consciousness and control? And yeah, you guessed it. Both frameworks have a way to explain this stepping up process. Keylontic Science talks about it in a very spiritual way. It's about activating dormant parts of our DNA, which then allows our consciousness to access higher dimensions and get back in touch with its original blueprint. Biophysics, on the other hand, sees it more like a super smart control system. All that biological data from our bodies gets fed back into a system that learns, it adapts, and eventually it shapes our values and even our culture. And this, right here, is where it gets really, really personal. Because this is where the two models totally agree on something huge. We are not passive observers in this process. Our thoughts, our choices, our emotions, even the way we hold our bodies, all of that is data. It's information that we are actively feeding back up the ladder. And it's modifying the very systems that are shaping us. So this brings us to the big finale of the paper's argument. It's not about a journey down and then a separate journey up. No. It's about realizing they are two halves of the same whole, one single, unified, continuously looping process. To tie it all together, the paper lays out this unified 6-phase model. Let's walk through it. It's actually pretty elegant. Step 1, interaction. Information makes contact with us. Step 2, inscription. It gets encoded into our biology. Step 3, adaptation. Our body adjusts and stores it as memory. Then step 4, integration. A new, higher awareness emerges from that change. Step 5, restructuring. With this new awareness, we actually change our environment. And finally, step 6, refinement. The whole loop starts over, constantly getting better. So, at the end of the day, the single biggest takeaway is this. We've been thinking about evolution all wrong. It's not a straight, forward-moving line. It's not a line. It's a loop. Information writes itself into matter, and then matter writes back, changing the possibilities for the next cycle. And this gives us this whole new way of thinking about evolution, a kind of bio-spiritual evolution. It's not just about random mutations. It's this beautiful, ongoing dance where information is constantly reshaping our physical bodies, and our bodies are, in turn, creating totally new possibilities for what information can even exist in the first place. Okay, so that's all super interesting, kind of mind-bending stuff. But so what? What does any of this abstract theory mean for you and me in our daily lives? Well, honestly, it changes everything about our role in our own lives and in evolution itself. The bottom line is, you are not a passive bystander. You are in the loop. Your conscious thoughts, they can literally influence your internal biology. That sunlight you feel on your skin, that's your system getting a software update. The choices you make, big and small, are actively shaping the informational environment for yourself and for everyone else. Evolution isn't something that just happened a long time ago. It's an active process you are participating in, right now. And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. If we are constantly feeding information back into this grand evolutionary loop through our thoughts, our actions, and our intentions, what kind of information are we sending? What are we telling the universe to become?